Hey guys, it's Ashley from mygreennest.com, and I run a blog that's eco-friendly, and it's all about motherhood, breastfeeding, cloth diapering, and now homeschooling. So if you're one of those crazy homeschooling moms who's trying to breastfeed, possibly cloth diaper, and teach homeschool, I got you. I got videos on all of it. One of my most popular blog posts is how to get a free breast pump with or without insurance, so check that out if you get a second. But today we're going to talk about all the things that we're going to do in 6th grade this coming school year. Actually, in the next month or so, we're going to start. I'm really excited to share with you all the goodies that we're going to do, and some of these things we've been using, so I know they work. And if you have a 2nd or 3rd grader, be sure to check out my recent videos on what we did for 2nd grade that really worked and what we're doing for 3rd grade. So, I'm going to shut up and get started on this video. Actually, I'm not going to shut up. I'm going to keep talking about all the things we're doing for 6th grade. So let's go. So for our mathematics, we use Saxon Math. Highly recommend. I absolutely love Saxon Math. I am not math-minded. His father's not math-minded. This was the one scary thing I was afraid to teach. But because these books take you step by step and they do it so small and incrementally, it's not scary. You're actually understanding the concept before you move on to a new concept. And you practice those concepts over and over and over until you get it. Now, the only thing about this curriculum is if you're really, really good at math, might not be the best curriculum because there's so much repetitive with the curriculum, but if you're someone who's not the best at it or just needs improvement, this is a great curriculum, through and through, solid. And my son he's doing very well at math since we've started practicing these concepts. So reading is kind of a big deal in our homeschool. I like to have my kids read between 2 to 4 books a month, depending on their age. Once my children are done reading a book, they do have to paraphrase it for us, and this is just to make sure that they understood and they actually read the book. We do also have a reward system in place for them after they read so many books. So the books that I just showed you were the books that my oldest son read this past year, and unfortunately we're just down to some Goosebump books. I actually have a bunch of Goosebumps that we got at a thrift store, but my son's getting a little tired of the same old, same old. My oldest also finished the Pokemon book series that we got on Amazon along with my 2nd grader. They both took turns reading those books last year. They really enjoyed them. So I really just need to double down and research some new books and new genres that are clean and fitting for my 6th grader because he's ready for some new books. Actually, in 6th grade, I hope to push him to read larger books than these medium-sized chapter books. I think he's ready for that next level. If you guys happen to know of any clean, good quality books for a 6th grader, please leave them in the comments below and I will check them out and see if they're at my local library. I'd appreciate all the help I can get. And just to gauge his overall reading comprehension level, I like to give him these little tests. There's only 10 of them in the book, and he'll just do this throughout the year. He does them pretty quick, and they also help him to learn new vocabulary, so to me that's a win. So I really need to make a separate video about this, but once a month we do what I call Missions Day, and this is where I will read out of the Voice of the Martyrs a story from the magazine. It will usually highlight some place in the world like India or Vietnam, and it details their struggles or how they're being persecuted and what we can do about it, how we can pray, and humanitarian efforts that we can get involved in. Another thing I have them do is write in their prayer journal, and they will write what they're thankful for and maybe a couple prayers for people in need. And then we do 20 minutes of Bible reading time. My oldest and my middle child are really good about this. However, my youngest, I am still working with getting her independent, but she's coming along. Sometimes we use Missions Day to study a great hymn of the past, and we like to wrap the day up with writing a letter to a loved one or a friend who needs encouragement, and this is where I try to get them to practice their cursive writing. Actually, my oldest already knows cursive writing, but sometimes he forgets his capital letters, so we use this little reference sheet. I think the next time we do Missions Day, I'm going to mix it up and have him email some of his family members so he can work on his typing skills as well. One of the things that we are very consistent on in our homeschooling is what I call read alouds, and this is where I will read a chapter book, at least 1 to 2 chapters a day during the work week. So I'm not completely sure what books we're going to be reading this year. I'm just going to kind of play it by ear. I do have some ideas in mind, but we did pull my youngest daughter out of public school, and she doesn't follow along with read alouds as good as the boys do. So I am going to probably have to read more kid-friendly books, at least until we build up her reading comprehension skills. Some of the contenders on my list is The Wild Robot 2, as we've already read The Wild Robot 1, and it was a pretty big hit with my kids, and an easy read. And I would like to read The Little House on the Prairie, as I read Farmer Boy and The Little House in the Big Woods, and that is the next one in line, and it's pretty easy to follow. And then of course The Secret Garden and a few others. Now, as I stated earlier, we do like to start our day reading a little bit of scripture and usually a devotional. We have completed all of our devotionals so far, and so I'm leaning towards ordering The Wonder of Creation, which is the third book in the science-based devotional series. It's really great because they're short, sweet, they've got wonderful pictures, and I have learned a lot about really cool plants, trees, and places in the world that I didn't even know existed. Speaking of science, my mother found this awesome anatomy book at a thrift store, and I like it because it has little things that pull out, and even my 6th grader, or soon to be 6th grader, loves pulling it out and reading the information. Actually, when we first got this book, he used to sit there and just read it for fun. So currently how we do our science is we'll do 1 week on science, and the following week we'll do government and history. And on our science weeks, I always follow up with having them draw something from the lesson or something that we talked about. And since we've been covering anatomy, of course, they're drawing things about anatomy, and I think they've done really well. And this also doubles to help them in their art. It's a fun way for them to learn more vocabulary and just become more familiar with science in general. And after we complete the anatomy book, I would really like to read this little bone book that we've got with our little skeleton anatomy set. Another book that I really like that we've been using over the past couple of years is this Exploring Nature activity book. We don't do it all the time. It's usually kind of like on a Friday afternoon or something like that, but it has really simple nature activities that they can do very easily with minimal tools. So I would like to go ahead and complete this book this year. So even though we cover science in a group setting, I went ahead and picked my son up a few extra workbooks that were age appropriate for him. One of them is this little nature reader that I'll have him read just throughout the year. And the reason why I picked this one up is he loves nature. He really loves reading. And this was kind of a little prize for him for doing so well last year in science. I just love the little illustrations in these books. And I like that they have them in different reading levels, so you can get one for each kid in whatever reading level they're at. I will link them below. However, this book here I did find at Mardell's if you have one close to you. Another science book, I kind of picked this one up on a whim because it was so affordable. I found it at Ollie's, is this Engineering Disasters book. Now I do have the other book that they offer, which is about chemistry. And it is a fantastic book. I will have to do a review on it. And it's always written, short, concise, in a very humorous tone. And they have little experiments at the end of the chapters and a lot of history mixed in. So hopefully we'll get to this one, or it might be something he can just read here and there. Now for his core science curriculum, I did pick up 2 workbooks. And you'll notice one says 7th grade, and that was on purpose. That's so that he can continue working on it next year and he wouldn't age out of it quickly. And I really liked this one because it looked like, you just read a little bit, answer the questions. It's not a really long lesson, and it had very interesting topics. This next book actually goes all the way up to 8th grade, so he can continue working on it as well. And this one was more like STEM, electronic, electrical, more mechanical type science, so I figured this would balance out the other book so he would get a better overall curriculum in science. Now for the more hands-on science, my oldest son really has taken to gardening, and he has learned a lot about composting, and we've learned together. And he likes to grow his own food, he loves to pick the produce, he loves to learn about the bugs that affect the garden and how to naturally treat for them without, using any harsh chemicals. He is just really soaring when it comes to this. Another little fun hands-on activity is knot tying. Now, we practiced this a couple summers ago. My kids learned how to do 2 or 3 different knots. So I would like to revisit that again this year and have them learn maybe a couple more. And we have this little knot tying kit that they can use. And I just think this is a really nice skill to have. I mean, you can use it in a lot of different situations. So one of the subjects in school that I feel like gets left out and not talked about enough in public and in homeschooling is survival skills. So I like to make this a little more of a priority for us. We have a bunch of homesteading, survival type books. And so when we're actively homeschooling, I have my son read a couple of pages of this per week, and then he comes and tells me about it. I just want my son to be rounded out in education, and that means, knowing about preparedness, survival, and I would also like to do one on medical. For example, what to do if someone is choking or things like that. I want him to also learn those subjects as well in the future. So last semester, we started this American History series by the Tuttle twins, and they go along with these little readers you can also get that teach about economics and business and law. My oldest has already read those books, and now my 3rd grader is working through them. Instead of listing a bunch of boring facts, it tells history in more of a storytelling way, and it tries to get you to pull the principles of history, like what are the principles that you learned. These books are written through the viewpoint of Emily and Ethan, and sometimes it asks really tough questions about the hard things that did happen in history. So currently, this is our family's main curriculum for history, and we just work through it every other week. And I just happened to find this great little reference for where the tribes used to be located, hundreds of years ago, and we use it quite often when we're going over Native American history. I'd also like to revisit these 2 books about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. My oldest and I have already gone through them, but it really is time for a refresher, so if I get time this year, I'm going to go through them again, especially with my 3rd and 2nd grader. I also picked up this geography workbook off of Amazon. After reading a lot of different reviews and looking at several, this is the one I decided to go with. So for part of our language arts, our kids study Spanish. My son has done various Spanish workbooks throughout his life, but we recently switched over to Rosetta Stone, which I really like it because it's hands-off, it's one less thing I have to teach, and plus I don't speak Spanish fluently anyway.
15.
So our main language arts or writing program that we use is IEW. We've been using it over the past year. He should be completing the 3rd to 5th grade notebook this year. He's a little bit behind on it because we started it late, but I like it because he gets to watch these lectures like he's in a classroom setting, and it does most of the teaching, and I can just help with the editing. It is very challenging. I had to learn along with Asher in order to know how to grade it. It wasn't the easiest program to get started on. I kind of had to learn what I was doing, but it's a great program, and I've already noticed that my kid is writing so much better, and I'm saving it to use with my son and my daughter as well.
Phones with cords attached, right? Because everybody had cordless phones or cell phones, right?
So I'll have to do an in-depth review later, but just real quick, this is the binder they give you, and it gives you like a sheet that tells you what to work on each week, everything that needs to be checked off, and they write out a composition after watching the lecture, and then you edit it, let them know what needs to be changed, and then they type it out. And this is how my son actually learned typing. I made him painstakingly type out his writing. It was a lot of hassle at first, but he's starting to get it now, and he's getting faster and faster. So that's how he learned typing, was just by doing IEW. So for our grammar, we use the curriculum called Fix It Grammar, and they're made by the same people who created IEW, so they work together very well. And this book goes all the way up to 8th grade, so we're not rushing to get it done. He's on the 3rd one. We are about halfway through, and he does maybe 2 to 4 pages every other week. So how it actually works is that you will have certain things you have to mark, like nouns, articles, verbs, things like that, and then you have to fix certain areas of the sentence. You have to rewrite the sentence correctly, and you have to find the vocabulary word in the dictionary and write it out as well. This is an example of some pages we've already worked through where I showed him his mistakes. He usually does really good at the grammar part, but he has trouble rewriting it correctly most of the time because he just forgets details. So that's been the biggest problem we've had with this curriculum, is getting him to understand the details or remember to put the period and things like that, but he's good at the grammar part. So as far as our extracurricular activities that we do, we like to submit artwork for the fair, the state fair. Last year, all 3 of my kids got ribbons. They did really well. Actually, I was the one that didn't get a ribbon, and I've been painting my whole life, so there's that. So right now they're working on getting their stuff for the next fair. We also do several different field trips throughout the year. I think this year we're going to try to go to the planetarium. We're going to go see the Ark in Kentucky. And last year we got to go to this Native American museum. We got in free through our library. Always check your library because they give free tickets sometimes to different museums. And I didn't have any pictures to show you guys, but we went to our local rock show. We've gone the last 2 years, and it sounds like it wouldn't be that fun, but it's actually really, really fun. It's free for homeschoolers. So get online and look for different events. Sometimes you can find them free or very affordable. And they had a digging area, they had a black light room where they showed like the rocks and how they glowed, and they just had so many fun things, and we all bought rocks. It was just really fun. For our PE, my son is really big into karate. We all do it as a family, or like all 3 of my kids do. We go to competitions. It's actually donation based, so we don't have to spend a lot of money. And my oldest son, just belted up to a green belt, which is kind of like lower intermediate. And my little ones just belted up to an orange. For music, my son likes to play the tong drum. We've tried to get him interested in music, but it's just really not his thing. But I do try here and there. This is probably the one place where I have dropped the ball a little bit. It would be nice to get him private lessons. We're a very musical family, but just trying to do it all is hard. I have in the past used the Alfred books to teach piano, but it's not my son's thing. Unfortunately, he's just not that into it. I also picked up a little dissecting kit to dissect a froggy. It's gel-based, and you can reuse it up to 3 times. I don't have it videoed because I just picked it up, but we're going to do that for our science. But other than that, that's everything we plan to do for 6th grade, and if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment below. I'd love to chat and hope to catch you in the next video.